Hi, it's Ed here to talk about LIFO repeal. We may soon see the most significant threat to LIFO in years, and it's time for distributors to forcefully make the case to Congress that repealing LIFO would devastate their business. You may have heard about comprehensive tax reform from Washington lately and the possibility of all sorts of grand bargains. The House Ways and Means Committee is working on a tax reform proposal, and word is it will call for LIFO repeal. Now, nothing's been introduced, but if true, it means we need to raise the alarm with our representatives in Washington to make sure that any tax reform proposal does not include LIFO repeal. Why does Congress want to repeal LIFO? They need money, pure and simple. Our federal government spends close to $4 trillion every year. The problem is they only collect around $3 trillion in revenue. That means they're looking under the sofa cushions for anything to close that gap. And LIFO looks to them like a big old pot of money that nobody will miss. In fact, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget called LIFO one of the 10 largest tax breaks in the corporate code. Cash-strapped tax writers think they can raise around $65 billion over the next 10 years by repealing LIFO. Even if they can, they'll have killed that goose. And after they recapture taxes on LIFO, they'll be back looking for more revenue. And let's not forget that while $65 billion sounds like a lot of money to any rational human being, the feds are on track under the most optimistic and unrealistic scenario to fall around $6 trillion short of balancing the federal budget over the same period. So it's a drop in the bucket to the federal deficit, but an existential threat to some distributors. All of this is to say there are far more effective ways of closing a federal budget deficit. For instance, entitlement spending comprises at least a third of federal outlays, but those big ticket outlays have big constituencies. And those constituencies get very emotional over entitlement reform. The reality is, entitlements and big ticket tax breaks like the mortgage interest tax deduction would be much more effective ways to address the deficit. So how do we convince policymakers? Our chances are only as good as our will. And our best chance to protect LIFO is to keep it from any tax reform bill that Congress introduces. Now, I know what you're thinking. They never get anything done out there. Who cares? Well, normally you're right. But it does matter now. Even if they don't pass tax reform this year, it's easier to keep something out of a bill before it gets introduced than it is to get it removed once it's in the bill. Some heavy lifting in advance will go a long way down the road. So now's the time to hit the phones. Call your member of Congress. Tell them what repealing LIFO would do to your business. Tell them to find that money somewhere else, or tell them to stop spending so much. You can find the contact information for your representatives at naed.org/tellcongress. You can also find some background on LIFO. And feel free to give me a call if you want to talk more about how to approach your member of Congress. We're here to help. So thanks for your time today, and thanks for your support of NAED.